The journey we're taking is the journey within you. Everybody has their own story and their own journey to share. Every journey conceals another journey within its lines, the path not taken and the forgotten angle. Listen to the stories from others sharing their triumphs and struggles that led them to where they are today. Welcome to the journey within you. And today I want to welcome a dear sweet lady, Lori, and she's going to share with us today her journey. I have been this month, I want to focus in August about coaching and like, what does it mean to be a coach? Why did we choose to be a coach? You know, I think along the way, we're all coaches in some form, but some of us want to take it a little deeper. And so, Lori, I would just love for you to share your story today with us.
Oh, sure will. Thank you, Laura, for having me, first of all.
Yeah.
So I want to take you back to when I was a child, and I grew up in Pickens County, which is a small town in North Georgia. And I came from an amazing family. My dad is a stonemason, and my mom at the time, she was a stay-at-home mom until she started working with my dad, and then she became a principal at Head Start. And so that, pretty much was how I grew up. And two sisters that are younger. I'm the oldest of us three, and like I said, an amazing family. We worked hard, but we played harder. That
Mhm.
was kind of like my dad's philosophy.
Aw.
And so we had a great time. We have very close family dynamics still till this day. Um, and so that's pretty much how I grew up.
Mm,
When I was 17, I actually got pregnant,
mm,
and I wasn't dating the guy and didn't marry the guy. And
yeah.
so when I was a senior in high school, I had my oldest daughter
Oh,
and then met my husband. And he and I met. I wasn't planning on dating anybody, didn't want to date anybody. I was very content and very settled in where I was as
mhm,
17 and with my family support. So I wasn't looking for anything.
mm,
But my parents still wanted me to enjoy life too as a teenager.
right.
So, had some friends ask me to go out, and I was like, "Okay, sure." And so my
Mm,
first thing was, she was like, "He's such a good guy, you know, he goes to church and all this." And I was like, "There's not a decent guy on earth gonna wanna date me. What are you talking about?" Because that was the way that I thought about myself,
mm,
after being
mhm,
17 and having a baby and, all the stuff that goes
mm,
along with that.
yeah.
Um, but when we pulled up, I was like, "Oh, dang, he is so cute. Like, why didn't you tell me
Yeah.
that it was gonna be like this?" Because I was prepared for, like, no way.
Yeah. Yeah.
But, but we had so much fun. We
Mm,
had just a great time. We really enjoyed each other, and we danced the night away. And so, um,
mm.
long story short, come back, tell my mom, "I'm gonna marry this guy. I don't know how, don't know when, never gonna see him
I did
again.
the
I don't
exact
know, but I'm gonna find him. We're gonna get married."
Yep.
So that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Um, and evidently he felt the same way, or at least he wanted to try.
Yeah.
So he got in touch with me 2 months later, and the rest is history. We've been together ever since.
Mhm. And you
And
just
he
celebrated, right? An anniversary.
I did 31 years, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, sure did. Um,
Awesome.
I know it's been amazing. It has. And it has not been all rainbows and sunshine, so don't think
Yeah.
that, you know,
Yeah.
but
It takes work.
it is work. It absolutely is work. But he adopted our oldest daughter,
Oh,
and we moved right to Birmingham, and my husband went to dental school. And
oh,
so I put him through dental school. I worked the entire time. We came back and started a dental practice.
mm,
So for 25 years, I've been in the practice with him. And that's
mm.
pretty much what I've done. And so we have a very successful dental practice in Calhoun. And we have a little farm in Fairmount. So, I love the farm life and the country life.
Yeah.
Um, so like I said, I've been there 25 years working in the dental practice. Raised, our daughters, got them through school. That wasn't always easy either. Teenage
Mm.
kids,
Oh,
difficult,
yeah.
and you have challenges along the way with kids.
Mhm.
Um, and about 3 years ago, um, I was pretty much just living life, just going
Mhm.
through the motions, living life. I call it now being on the Ferris wheel of life,
Yeah.
and everything was the same, but I had lost who I was.
Yeah.
And I had gone through some really difficult times. And Laura, one thing that I have discovered is that in our 20s, we think we have it figured out.
Yeah. We do.
We're so busy raising kids and in our professions and trying to maintain a household and a marriage and everything. We don't really have time to focus on ourselves.
Mm.
And when we're in our 40s, we're still kind of starting that, where we're taking care of our kids and all
Yeah.
that. But toward mid 40s, and I'm 50, and so, into that, we don't have it figured out. And we
Mm-mm.
realized we should have gone back when we were younger and kind of dealt with a lot of that stuff we didn't deal with. Because
Mm.
now it's somehow rearing its ugly head and surfacing, and we don't know what to do with it.
Right. Right. We keep burying it, Don't
We
just stuff it on
do.
there because I have a beautiful life. So let's
Yeah.
just don't deal with it.
Well, and I would look at it and I would think, there's so many people who would trade what I have.
Yeah.
And I do have a beautiful life. There is
Yes.
no doubt in my mind, I have a beautiful life,
Mhm.
but I I wasn't beautiful with it, if that
Right.
makes sense.
Yes. Total sense. I get that 100%. Yeah.
I wasn't beautiful with it. And,
Mhm.
it looked good on the outside,
Mhm.
and I'll say that I was as dark as the night on the inside, but nobody knew it
Right. Right.
because
And I
I wanted
a
to
lot
keep that
of women,
hidden.
yeah, carry that, and like you said, in our 20s, we know everything, we've got it all figured out, and I'm
Yeah.
61, and then just the last, I'd say 3 years is where I have started really finding myself again, because I had totally,
Yeah.
like you, just lost it, lost who I was, living a beautiful life, happy on the outside, big smile on the outside,
Mhm.
but inside, suffering.
Yeah. And we suffer in silence.
Mhm.
We don't we say things that a lot of people don't listen to the underlying and
Yeah.
don't know what we're trying to say by some of the things that we say because we don't want to come out and say it.
Mhm.
So we just kind of cover it up with a little smile and a joke and sarcasm and
Yeah.
um but what we're really wanting is to be seen, heard and loved.
Yes.
And
Yes.
we don't feel that,
Right.
on the inside.
Right.
So I found myself at the end of my driveway one day,
Mm,
and, I laughed at the fact that I could be halfway across the country before my husband got home and anybody missed me,
mm.
and I knew that was a dark, twisted thought,
Yeah.
and,
Yeah.
the only thing that really mattered to me at that time, and this is gonna sound so bad, is I didn't wanna hurt my parents.
Right. And
I didn't
I can relate to that. Oh,
and
why
I
is it?
didn't
Oh.
because even though I knew my husband loved me, I knew my girls loved me,
Mhm.
my parents were it was an unconditional kind of love that no matter what, they had my back,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
And of course I wouldn't leave my girls and I didn't wanna hurt anybody. So, I knew that was just a twisted thought that I was
Yeah.
having.
Yeah.
But I called my sister and I was like, "What in the world is going on with me? Like,
Mm.
something's not right." And
Mhm.
she was like, "You really need to reach out to somebody. You really need to talk to somebody and figure out what's going on." And so, she got me in touch with someone, and it was a coach. And
Mhm.
so we kind of connected, um, and talked, a couple of times.
Mhm.
In the meantime, one Sunday, my pastor's wife walked up to me and she said, "Are you okay?" And I
Mm.
said, "Yeah,
No. Oh,
I'm
you
good."
said
And she said, "No, you're not."
mm,
And I said, "No, I'm not." I
mm,
said, "I'm gonna be honest with you." I said, "I'm not." And I said, "I'm really struggling right now."
mm.
And, she said, "Well, I don't need to know what it is. I don't need to know what you're going through. You just know I'm here.
Oh.
You just know I'm praying for you, and you just know I'm here."
Mm.
And that meant the world to me
Yes.
because I didn't have to tell her anything.
Yeah.
She didn't want to be nosy and know what was going on. She
Yeah.
just wanted me to know she
She
saw
knew.
me, she
Mhm.
heard me, and she loved me.
That's beautiful.
And
Beautiful.
and the coach kinda did the same thing. She
Yeah.
kinda let me say everything I wanted to say, however I wanted to say it, and it was all good.
Yeah.
You know, there was no judgment on her part, and I
Right.
loved that
Mm.
because, Laura, I don't know about you, but all of my life, it's been like I've been judged about everything,
Mhm. Mhm.
you know?
Yeah. Yeah, I'm
Uh,
a preacher's kid, so I have lived through some crazy stuff and always looked at. And I can
yeah,
relate so highly with you about I never worried about hurting, and that sounds awful, my husband, my kids, it was my parents.
mhm,
Oh, how would that affect my dad?
yeah,
I was the first divorce in our family, and I held on for so long because I didn't wanna hurt my father.
yeah,
That father and my father, my earthly
right,
father. And
right,
I was like, "Oh," but he was supportive. He knew I needed to get out of the
right,
situation I was in. But again, yeah, I worried so much about my parents because
right,
of my upbringing. I had a
exactly,
beautiful life, growing up. So I can relate to that very
yeah.
much.
And that in itself, but like I said, I didn't wanna hurt anybody, my
No,
kids,
me
because
either.
I
Yeah,
adore my children and my husband, but I just knew something wasn't right.
right.
But what wasn't right was me. I
Yeah.
had lost myself,
Mhm.
and so no matter where I went, I was gonna be there. So,
Yeah.
I better figure it out where I'm at because
Yeah.
nothing's gonna change if nothing changes. If I can go
That's
across the country and if I'm still gonna be there. And
Yeah.
if I'm still miserable, I'm gonna be miserable there too. So, it's not a if when thing, it's a now. I've got to
Yes.
do this, you know.
Yes.
And 2, I knew that my relationship with God was not where it needed to be.
Mm. Yeah.
And I that is, like, I bank my life on my relationship with Jesus,
Right.
and it's everything to me.
Mhm.
Um, am I perfect? No, and I don't wanna betray that image
No.
either, I no. If anybody hears this and they know me, they know the truth, but they also know that I love the Lord.
Yes.
But I knew that wasn't right,
Mhm.
and I was mad. I was mad at God.
Mhm.
I was very mad at him,
Mhm.
um, because everything that I had done, I'd stepped out on the limb and started doing I was doing a blog. I was writing blogs, and I
Yeah.
would take stories, from people, and I would tie it into scripture. So
Mhm.
I was doing that,
Mhm.
and then it was like everything went south from there,
Mhm.
and I was like, "I did what you told me to do,
Yeah.
and now I'm wanting to leave everything? Like, what's going on?"
Yeah.
Um, but what I had to come to realize is that I didn't know who I was.
Mm.
I didn't love myself. I didn't like the life I was in. I had not ever dealt with a lot of things that went on.
Mhm.
Not only getting pregnant at 17, but I was also asked to remove my membership from the church that I belong to. Um, and then, you know, we got married and it was something moving into different town and getting started into practice and not really knowing what I was supposed to be doing, and like it was just a lot of crazy stuff. And everything that day, the lines were blurred.
Mm.
You know?
Yeah. Yeah.
And the coach that I had, like I said, she really helped me decipher through things
Mhm.
and say things I knew about myself
Mhm.
and allowed me that space. And so, that really helped me to grow and to
Mhm.
get to know who I was.
Mm.
Um, because I could tell you on the surface who I was,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know?
It's down
But
here. You gotta
yeah,
know.
but I
Yeah.
wanted to know who I really was.
Yeah.
I wanted to know my inner person, my
Mm.
essence, the core of who I was.
Mhm.
And that's what I wanna live from. I want everything else to flow from that.
Yeah.
And, so she helped me out, but I just kinda did a lot of stuff myself too. I started
Mhm.
really slowing down, um, taking time to listen to myself, to own my story, to
Mm.
figure out my values and what I really stood for,
Mhm.
and to really embrace the experience of life.
Mm.
And
Instead of
so
living it. Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
But, what that came down to was love.
Yeah.
Listen, own, values, and experience, and that all came down to love.
Mhm.
And to allow people to love me,
Mhm.
to love myself,
Mhm.
and to know that the worst thing someone can do to me is cause me to feel bad about myself, and that's my choice.
Mhm. Right. Yeah. A lot of choices we make, and they can be good and they can be damaging into how we live.
Right. And one thing about that day that I stood at the end of my driveway is I had a choice.
Mhm.
And all of my life, I've had a choice.
Mhm.
Since I knew how to make a choice and I could make my own decisions, I've
Mhm.
always had a choice. And I will never forget that day that I stood there. So, my thing is all your life you've had a choice and remember the day you decide.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
So
that
important.
day is what catapulted me into becoming a coach.
Mm.
Um,
Mm.
I never want another woman to know what that feels like.
Yeah. Or if they do, they know that there are ways to move forward from that, you
Yes.
know, because I think a lot of times we are taken to the pit, and that's where we find God, and that's where we find
Right.
ourselves to build
Right.
us back up, you know, and to becoming who we're to be.
Absolutely, and no one wants to walk through the valley, and one thing
No.
I remind people all the time is, in Psalm 23, David walks through the valley of the shadow of death. He's
Yeah.
walking. He keeps
Yeah.
moving, you
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
and the thing about a valley is there's so much greenery and so much
Yeah.
life that's
Yes.
there, and I
Yeah.
think you're right. That's where we find what we're looking for, that we've had the entire time for most of us. We've just
Well,
had it hidden.
it's taught me to draw closer to Him.
Mhm.
Not just in the down times, the low times, but also in the joy and the happy and the good times because he's always there. I
Yes.
think one of my fears was always, and I found this out just over a year in coaching for myself because I believe in that too, continued coaching for yourself. Um, I had always had this fear of being alone.
Yeah.
So she had me write it out, what are my reasons and all that. And I was writing it, and it was such a beautiful moment with God when he's like, "You're never alone.
Mhm.
I'm always with you."
Yeah.
I get teary thinking about it because so
Yeah.
many think they're alone and that they have no one, but you have the Father always, always with you. He
Exactly.
never leaves you. This world will leave you hanging, but
Yeah.
God never, ever leaves you.
And that's the thing too, is we put expectations on ourselves and we put expectations on other people. We can't always live up to our own standards, and
Exactly.
other people sure can't,
Right.
So,
Right. Yeah.
if that's the case, then we're bound to have hurt. So no, I think that the thing about it is that those expectations are what hurts us too,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
And so, like you said, I know other people have that they're human. Other people can hurt me,
Mhm.
but that's not God.
No.
And that was not ever his intention. You
No.
know, my all my stuff that he's the author of my life.
Yeah.
And simultaneously, while he is the author of my life, I'm also making decisions for that story.
Mhm.
You
Mhm.
know? So it's
Yeah.
crazy how simultaneously those
No,
go along.
it is. Yes. And it's
And
back to the choices.
exactly. And the
Mhm.
very same moment that whatever is going on in my life that was meant to break me, he actually is using to make it a beautiful story. And
Mhm.
that's part of his
Mhm.
masterpiece,
Yeah.
his overall canvas of our life.
Mhm.
And, I think that's so beautiful,
Mm.
but I didn't
Yes.
see that.
No, and we
No.
don't. We don't in the moment at all.
No, because I was looking at right now. I
Yes.
wasn't looking at what was coming or I wasn't remembering what he had done, in
Mhm.
the past for me
Mm.
either. I was only being so selfish right now.
Mhm.
And I know people are like, "Well, but you talk about self-love." Yeah, I do talk about self-love
Mhm.
because I do love who I am. I love
Mhm.
who I am out of reverence of who created me,
Yes.
and also I love myself enough to be selfless,
Yeah.
completely pouring into other people
Mhm.
because I am able to love who I am, and that's
Mhm.
what I want someone else to know what that's like.
Yeah. Such a beautiful feeling.
It is, and there's no the thing about it is, Laura, is that no matter what goes on around you, you're okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know
Yeah, I hear that a lot from people. It's like, "You always seem so happy." And I said, "I am,
Mhm.
because what I get to do and what comes around me, I know who's helping me through it." So I'm joyful in that, I don't
Right,
have to go down the drain of, "Oh, Lord, here we go again. Why me? Poor me." No, it's a beautiful thing, because through that, like you said, God's gonna show me something through that.
right,
He's gonna give me the strength. It's gonna turn out it just like his masterpiece, how it should be. So I'm here
absolutely.
for it. I'm here for it,
Right,
I'm put on this earth for a purpose through him. And so whatever he wants me to do and leading me and doing and serving others, I'm here for it, you
yeah.
know? And then you don't have time to think about all the chaos that's going on around you.
No,
Yeah,
no,
'cause
and
it's happening.
you don't want someone to drag you down their rabbit hole either, so you know where to say, "This is my
Mhm.
boundary and this is where I am," and that was
Yeah,
one of the things that I had to learn about was
yeah,
boundaries,
yeah.
and what that meant. And, my coach definitely helped me with that,
Mhm,
learning what a boundary was and how to establish that and how
mhm,
to honor that boundary,
mhm,
and, to honor myself in that
mhm.
boundary.
I think,
But
Lori, it goes back to your I'm sorry, I interrupt you. It goes
no,
back to your core values, and I loved how, I don't Alejandra, she
yeah,
sets up standards, and I loved how she taught us that too. Boundaries kinda close off, that's it, done, you know? But if you set standards, it allows certain people still to come in, but they know your standard, and they're
right,
not gonna incorporate try to bring theirs in because you have core values. And so
right,
I love having standards and boundaries kind of float together, down your life, your path.
right. And, when I talk about boundaries, I know most people think of a boundary as something very authoritative, very controlling, a rule or a law. Um,
Mhm,
I don't look at a boundary like that. I
mhm.
look at a boundary of this is self-control.
Yes.
It's more along the lines of self-control
Right.
than as something that's authoritative or
Yeah,
something that's a rule or a law, you know.
right. I agree.
So that's one thing that I really focus on too is that's self-control.
Yeah.
And I say that my joy and freedom lie on the fringe of a boundary, and that's
Mhm,
true because
mhm.
if that's being infringed upon, then so is my joy, my freedom, and my peace.
Yes. Yes. Amen. Yeah, 100% on that too. I mean, we have to set that up so that we don't allow all that to trickle in, because it's just
Mhm.
like someone with an addiction. If they don't set up some type of boundary of in their life, it's always going to start flowing back in.
It
It's
is.
there, so they have to. Um, yeah, that's just beautiful. Beautiful.
Yeah.
So you
But I
started your coaching. Where did that what what did you do to start into that? What led you there? I know what led you there, but I mean, what made you start?
my coach, she said, I said, "Hey," I said, "You know all this about me." I said, "I wanna know things about you." So I started asking her questions, and she was like, "You're really good at this. Like, Lori,
Ooh,
have you thought about coaching?" And I said, "Nah, I love helping people. I've"
yeah.
and my husband would always come and get me at the dental practice, and he would bring me back there, and he would help me coach people through,
Mm,
getting their dental work done, or a lot of things in life that they were struggling with. I would just sit down with them and talk.
Yeah.
Um, because a lot of times they want to they tell you everything that you want to know
Yes.
while they're in the dental chair,
Yeah. Yeah.
before you're in their mouth and working on them.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, and so he would come and get me, and I would help them through that. So she tells me that, and a couple days later, my husband calls me and he said, "Hey, Lori, I was listening to WMBW, which is a Christian station out of Chattanooga." And he said, and they were talking about how suicide has so
Mm,
increased because people feel so lonely.
mm,
He said, "Have you thought about like going into something where you can help people through that? Because you're so good at listening to people."
mm,
And I was
mhm,
like, no, not really. But you're talking about coaching. And he was like, yeah, something along those lines. And I was like, okay, God, that's two.
mhm.
And so I'm one of those neon sign people,
Yeah.
like I want you to put me a neon sign that says, this is what I want you to do.
Yeah.
So I was like, okay, God, I will pursue this, but I need you to nail it down for me.
Mm,
I need to know that this is the path that you want me to take because this is going to be, this is going to, change a lot of where I'm headed. The dental
mhm,
practice is going to change because I'm not going to be there.
mhm,
I'm going to have to go to school and figure this out. And what does it mean? And what does it look like? And, so it's an investment of time and
mhm,
money.
mhm.
And so God, I want to know, is this you? Is this what you want?
Right.
And about 2 days later, one of my hygienists walks in my office, and I get emotional when I think about it. She said,
Oh.
I really I wanna thank you for always being by my side, for
Mm.
helping me through these times because I wouldn't be the person I am today if it weren't for you."
Oh, so sweet.
And so when she walked out, I was like, "I got it, God. I
That's
got it."
it. Yeah.
And
I
so
love
I immediately started taking some classes and, enrolled in the Professional Christian Coaching Institute. And,
mm,
so I did that, and, um, that helped me, to start into knowing what coaching really was and what does
mm,
that look like.
mhm.
Um, it's not about telling people what to do.
No. Mm-mm.
We have the answers within us. It's just
Yes.
helping to draw that out,
Yeah. Help
and
find it. Mhm,
asking the right questions
mhm,
to help that person figure out, what's inside them that they need to release, they need to talk about.
mhm.
Sometimes being a coach is just being a sounding board.
Yeah. Yeah.
Sometimes
Definitely.
it's just listening.
Mhm. Yeah. You
So,
don't have the answers.
no,
Mm-mm.
no, not at
No.
all. But, just
Mm-mm.
helping people along that path to figure out which direction they wanna take.
Yeah.
Um, so that's how I became a coach.
Mm. Mm.
And, I honestly, Laura, I love coaching.
Yeah.
I love to see people become the person that God created them to be, their
Mm,
authentic, true
mhm.
person,
Yes.
not covered in a mask, able to take that mask off no matter the cost of what anyone else thinks.
Right, right. Yeah, that's such a beautiful feeling too within them to be able to do that. Like, I am free. And that was something I did through this last coaching with Alejandra. Freedom is my word this year. And she
Mm.
helped me release something that I didn't know I had buried in me for all my years since 13.
Oh,
And
wow.
when I was able to release that, I had a picture of me standing in front of a lake with my arms open wide, just freedom. It's gone, and I saw how that people don't realize how when you do bury something like that, how it impacts your life all the way through. Even though
Mhm.
it's down in there and you've like forgot it and it's gone, you think. And when we did this meditation that I had not ever really practiced meditation, and it was a beautiful thing for me. Now I love it, to be able to go
Mm.
back and sit down with yourself.
Right.
And better, it could be good, happy, sad, whatever, but you sit down and God leads you to the person when you need to relate to again. And it was that 13-year-old he took me back to. And I was
Wow.
like, wow, wow, I can't believe I held this in all these years. And I had never told a single soul about what
Mm.
happened
Right.
there. until I'm 100, and I'm like, I can't believe I'm even saying it out loud. And she's like, you needed to do this. This is with the healing, and that was because I was always like, I don't need to heal. I don't need to heal. I'm good. I've had a good life, brought up in a Christian home, all the family things, and I was like, oh, yes, okay, I need to heal.
Yeah.
Now I have that freedom. And I see why God gave me that word this year. It's just
Yeah.
so how it all comes.
And
So
my word is to believe, because
I
if we seek that freedom, but we don't believe it, we
don't
don't believe that we're free,
right.
we're still gonna keep that bound up inside of us,
Mhm.
and I'm all for people writing things down and saying, because one thing that I love about coaching is you'll say something and you're like, "Oh my gosh, I can't believe I just said that."
Yeah.
That really came out. And I'm
Yeah.
like, "It's okay. It's really okay."
Yeah. Yeah.
That's good. Say
Mhm.
more, tell me more, say more about that,
Yeah.
because there's more in there. Just keep going a little bit farther with that.
Mhm. Mhm.
And there's so much, like you said, freedom and peace and joy
Mhm.
comes from releasing that and from saying those things.
Mhm. I have the Journey Within You podcast. And
Right.
I'm inviting women to come on and tell their story, yet I'm not telling my full story. And it
Mm.
was like, "Ooh, how can you invite people in to do that, Laura, when you're not willing to tell yours? You're keeping things buried there." And that
Wow.
was the freedom in that this year. I was like, "Okay." Honor is like, you don't have to go broadcast it all over Facebook, all these things, but you're gonna know when that moment is that you need to tell that part of your story. And I'm
Right.
like, "Oh, that's another freedom," you know?
Yeah.
And in my coaching, I can share that with that person. I know where you're coming from.
Yeah.
And my experiences of what I did and went through. So yeah, it was just a whole, again, finding myself this year, more about me and who I am. And it is again, freedom. It's
Yeah.
just a beautiful thing.
It is. It is. It is such a beautiful thing. And one thing people are like, "Well, you've uncovered everything. You know everything, about you." And I'm like, "No, I
Mhm.
don't." You know,
Always
I'm
learning.
still uncovering things because there are still things that trigger me. I
Mhm.
had something the other day that triggered me, and I was like, I thought I dealt with that."
Yeah.
So, I went a little deeper in my with myself, "Hey, what is going on here, Lori?"
Mhm.
And I probably look like a crazy person talking to myself, but
Stop. Oh,
I'll investigate that a little bit more within myself of what else is there? What else is going on there?
yeah.
Um, one of my biggest struggles has been trust.
Yeah. Yeah.
So um and it's crazy that when I broke down everything that I did, to help myself, and now that's the method that I use to help my clients.
Mhm.
Um, it was love,
Yeah.
because it, I've always said that I love with with no boundaries. Like,
Yeah.
I will love you to the bitter end of the earth,
Yeah.
but I would only let you so far.
Yeah.
And um, when I started this journey about 3 years ago, that was one thing. I came into the room one night with my husband, and I was like, "Listen, I've kept you from loving me.
Mhm.
I've kept you at a distance for all
Mm.
these years,
Mm.
and there's some things we've gotta clear up."
Mm.
And I said, Here's where it is. This is it." And we both just laid everything out.
Oh,
I say that we stripped it all away, you
yeah.
know, between both of us.
Yeah.
And I even said, here's what I need.
Mhm.
And if this is not where we're both headed, then, you know, I'm good to leave. I'm okay to give this up
Mhm.
because I've got to do this,
Mhm.
you know? And, I had to be honest with myself. I had to be honest with him. He had to be honest with himself. He had to be honest with me.
Mm.
And we had some really difficult times because both of
Mhm.
us brought things up that we didn't know were
Yeah,
triggers
yeah.
for one another from way past relationships.
Mhm.
Um, because obviously we've been married more, you know, longer than
Yeah. Oh, lordy.
it was 20 something years, 29 years, 28 years at that time.
Yeah,
And,
yeah.
so we had a lot of stuff to dig through.
Mhm.
Um, but it was the greatest thing that we
Yeah,
ever did
yeah,
for our marriage. And
yeah,
we've really learned what it means to love one another. Even though we loved each other before, we
yeah,
really know what it means to love each other now.
yeah. I think it's
And
so important to have those deep conversations more
mhm,
often.
it is.
Again, in a marriage, we start just living life and it becomes a routine, you know, day in and day out thing. And yet we, like you said, you love each other, you
Mhm.
respect each other, but there's things building up again that you're like, okay, we need to just sit and we need to reconnect. We need to have some good conversations here about some things that I'm feeling, you're feeling, yet we're not expressing them.
Exactly. Well,
Hmm.
and we're afraid, it comes
Yeah,
down to it that we're fearful of what's gonna
yeah,
happen, you know?
yeah,
So we just pick that rug up and keep sweeping stuff up underneath it, but eventually that gets so high, we can't walk over
yeah.
it or around it or through it.
Mhm,
Something's got to be done,
mhm.
and then you find yourself where you're just surviving, you aren't thriving.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. I've said that so many times. And, I was in a marriage prior for 15 years
Mhm.
and I was just surviving. And it
Yeah,
was an abusive relationship. It was awful. And
yeah.
when I came into this beautiful God-given relationship with my husband, we've been 28 years. And I I lived though in fear because I was not realizing how much he loved me and respected me to be my own person because I
Mhm.
was so trapped in the prior marriage that I was dictated on how I could act, move, do whatever. I had to learn to trust that I was okay to be me and he didn't have a checklist and he wasn't going to tell me my every move. And so yeah,
Yeah,
that was some adjustment that I had to go through in accepting what God had given me in this marriage, a
yeah,
true relationship marriage. Um, yeah, it's crazy how we get ourselves in such a thought pattern, on how things should be in life. Um,
yeah.
but coaching is so valuable. And people, don't turn away from it. It's not like therapy. It's not like
No.
going to a psychologist. It's not that. This
Mm-mm.
coaching is something that's going to help you just in so many areas of your life. It's another thing I didn't know till 4 years ago, how important it
I
is
didn't
for
either.
myself. Yeah. I had no clue that I needed it.
Because I'm gonna be honest with you, when someone talks about, going to talk to somebody, I'm like, "I don't wanna go to a therapist or a
I don't
psychologist,
care all that.
psychiatrist," I don't wanna do that, like, I just am not comfortable with that because what what I imagine is, me laying down on the sofa and them trying to hypnotize me or something, to tell them something, and I'm like, "No, that's not what I want." But coaching
No.
is so not like that.
Mm-mm,
It is
mm,
it's about the person. It's about my clients.
mhm.
And one of the greatest things that I've discovered is that they may come to me, with one issue, but that's not what we end up talking about.
Mm-mm.
You
And
know,
that's so funny how that happens. Yeah. Yeah.
it is,
God
and
thing. That is a God thing. I mean, it's just so beautiful there too.
it is. I'm 100% convinced that every single person needs a coach.
Yes. Yes.
Not necessarily, if you struggle with, not knowing yourself or in your marriage or things like that, but sometimes we just need to talk.
Mhm.
Sometimes we just need somebody to listen to us.
Mhm.
And there are decisions that you're gonna make throughout your life that you need some help navigating. There
Mhm.
are situations that come into your life you need help navigating.
Mhm.
Um, I know one thing I didn't talk about, Laura, was when my oldest daughter was 18, she actually left home. Um,
Mhm.
and so that was a very difficult path for us to walk for a while. She was still a senior in high school, and so it was not, it was not a pleasant time at all.
Mm,
And I
mhm.
wish that I had had a coach to help
Yeah,
me navigate that
yeah.
because, one of the things that I struggle with was abandonment,
Mhm,
and feeling abandoned.
mhm.
Not that she abandoned me because she didn't, like, completely write me off. We had a relationship,
Yeah.
but, you feel that way,
Mhm,
and so just to help me navigate those times.
mhm,
But what happened was that that added on top of, um,
mhm.
situations from when I was a teenager, it just compiles, and so then you have all these feelings that are going on inside you, and it's gonna come out some way,
Oh,
you know?
yeah.
I
Oh,
don't care
yeah.
how hard you try to cover it up.
Exactly.
It's going to rear its ugly head in one way or the other. You're gonna
Mhm,
be angry, you're gonna be distant, there's so many things that we are,
mhm,
jealousy, comparison, there's
mhm,
so many different things that we go through when we don't deal with situations.
mhm,
And when I'm saying dealing with it, I don't necessarily, like I said, mean to go to a therapist. I mean, and you
mhm.
gotta talk about it. Just
Yeah,
get it out,
yeah.
talk about it, write it down,
Mhm,
have these conversations with people, work through how do I get past this,
mhm,
you know?
mhm.
And
Yeah.
I've had to work through a lot of that abandonment,
Mhm,
um, and a lot of that trust.
mhm.
And that has been one of the most beautiful journeys, a difficult journey, but
Yes.
it's been a beautiful journey.
Yeah. It is because you see the bigger picture once you're on the other side.
Mhm.
You're able to see, "Oh, okay, this is why I was feeling the way I was feeling in that moment and why I've
Right.
carried it through my life in different situations. And now I'm able to handle that and deal with that in a different light." And it's
Mm,
just, yeah. It-
I can remember when my daughter first left and there were weeks and I would go to the bank every day because I was at the, practice, and so I would take money to the bank every day, and one of the ladies at, the window several months into this, she said, "I'm so happy to see you smiling." She said, "You finally look like yourself again."
Mm,
And I had no idea that all these months
yeah.
I had looked like this.
Mm,
But I honestly thought the world should stop spinning when my daughter left.
yep. Yep.
I mean, I was like, "I'm in pain, and my
Yep.
world looks like, feels like it just fell apart. Why is everybody else going to their mailbox? Like, I can't figure this out." You
Hmm.
know? So,
Yep.
I was so thinking about myself, and if I'd
Hmm.
had a coach who could help me through that time, if I knew what a coach was,
Hmm.
then that I would have been able to deal with that a little bit different, I think.
Yeah. Oh, most definitely. And again, we've got to talk after this because there's so many things that we relate in. I'm like, oh my gosh. I just like ding, ding, ding. It's so crazy because I have the daughter thing and I have that, and abandonment was my ego, one of my big things. Abandonment,
Yeah.
feeling alone, you just all those things that hit you. But so you have been coaching now for how long?
For 2 years.
2 years.
Mhm.
And so you have your practice, and I'm going to put all the information at the bottom of the
Okay.
podcast. People
Okay.
will be able to contact you and get with you. Is there any? I love to ask a fun question towards the
Okay.
end. Something on your bucket list that you want to have or accomplish before you leave this earth.
So I wanna speak in front of 10,000 people.
I love it. That is beautiful. Gosh.
That is my goal.
Oh,
Um, I can see myself walking out into this huge arena and speaking to people about life and how beautiful it can be, but
mhm,
how important it is to know who you are, but know
mhm.
whose you are too.
Oh, I am cheering you on. I am cheering you on. I know it'll happen because if we believe it, right,
Yeah. Yeah.
it's gonna
I
happen.
you know, I do. I believe that that's where God is taking me. I don't
Yeah,
I don't know how I'm
yeah.
gonna get there. I don't know the how,
but you just keep moving forward, right? Doing
Yeah.
the steps, moving
Yeah.
forward. That's so, so good. Well, Lori, I appreciate you coming today.
Thank you for
We're
having me,
gonna
Laura.
meet up for lunch because I didn't know we were this close to each other
Yeah.
when I'm home.
Yeah.
When I am home. But
Yes.
I would love that so much. Thank
Absolutely.
you. Thank you for being here today.
Thank you, Laura. I appreciate it.
Thank you for joining my podcast today. We all have a story to share. Each story has purpose and makes an impact to you, the listener, creating a journey with passion and purpose. The journey we're taking is the journey within you. Please share with others and subscribe below.